Abraham's Hebron, Then and Now, presented by Jeffrey M. Bradshaw in 5 parts. Part 2, The Tomb of the Patriarchs. The purpose of this series is to provide a brief introduction to some of the places linked in tradition to the lives of the family of Abraham and Sarah. Many, though not all, of the sites we will visit are in or near the city of Hebron. It is hoped that this series of presentations will increase exposure to these sites, so rich in biblical history. The best known and most visited site connected with Abraham is the Tomb of the Patriarchs, located south of Jerusalem in Hebron, part of the Palestinian-controlled West Bank. The story of this burial place begins in Genesis 23, 1 and 2. Quote, "And Sarah was 107 and 20 years old. And Sarah died in Kiryat Arba, the same as Hebron in the land of Canaan. And Abraham came to mourn for Sarah and to weep for her." The place named Kiryat Arba means the city of Arba. In Joshua 14:15, Arba is mentioned as prominent among the Anakim, reputed to be a race of giants. Some interpret the name as meaning the city of 4, either referring to 4 of the giants, Anak and his 3 sons, or to the 4 biblical couples traditionally thought to be buried here, Adam and Eve, Abraham and Sarah, Isaac and Rebekah, and Jacob and Leah. Kiryat Arba is also the name of a Jewish community east of the old city of Hebron that was founded in 1968. Later in Genesis 23 we read, "And after this Abraham buried Sarah his wife in the cave of the field of Machpelah before Mamre, the same as Hebron in the land of Canaan." Although God had promised Abraham the whole of the land of Canaan, the only part of the land that he actually owned was this burial plot, which he had to obtain by haggling with Ephron the Hittite. Eventually, Ephron suggested the exorbitant price of 400 silver shekels for the cave, which Abraham eagerly paid, wanting there to be no question that it rightly belonged to him and to his descendants forever. In Jewish tradition, the name Machpelah, with the meaning of doubling, is usually said to refer either to the structure of the caves as 2 adjoining cavities, or to the fact that several biblical couples are buried together here. The cave of Machpelah has been a site of pilgrimage for thousands of years. Machpelah has been under the control of Jews, Christians, and Muslims at various times in its history. It was enclosed 2,000 years ago with a roofless structure whose imposing walls were built by Herod the Great. It was later the site of the Byzantine and Crusader Christian churches. In 1267, minaret towers were added by Muslim rulers, and the structure was transformed into a large mosque, Al-Haram al-Khalil, the Al-Khalil referring to Abraham as the friend, meaning the friend of God. Muslims also call it Al-Haram al-Ibrahimi, Abraham's mosque. Jews call it Me'arat ha-Machpelah. At the present time, a synagogue is also contained within the building. Thus, both Muslim and Jewish services are currently held within the monument. The cave itself is currently sealed off. The stone structure that encloses the cave is about 61 meters long, 36 meters wide, and 15 meters high. The walls are 2 meters thick. The monument sits at the far end of the plains of Mamre and is clearly visible from a distance. The walls of the Tomb of the Patriarchs were built at the same time Herod's temple was being constructed in Jerusalem. A resemblance between the design and construction techniques of the 2 buildings can be seen in this photo of the western wall of Herod's temple, showing written prayers of Jewish pilgrims reverently crammed into the crevices between the massive stones. In both buildings, each stone was framed and slightly offset from the stones beneath it, producing a marvelous overall visual effect. Herod also took similar pains when he constructed walls for a 3rd sacred site at Mamre, 2 miles north of Hebron. We will visit the ruins of Mamre in a later video in this series. This photo shows the Tomb of the Patriarchs in about 1977, when I visited Israel for the first time. This diagram shows the layout of the interior of the Tomb of the Patriarchs after Herod's enclosure was roofed and structured by later Christians and Muslims. The building is laid out on a northwest-southeast axis. It is divided into two sections by a wall running between its northwestern 3/5, colored in blue, and the southeastern 2/5, colored in yellow. The blue northwestern section is roofed in on three sides. The white central area and the northeastern side is open to the sky. The yellow southeastern section is fully roofed, the roof being supported by 4 columns shown here. There are 2 sealed-off entrances to the cave below. One is visible to visitors, the other is hidden. The most important features of the structure are the 6 cenotaphs. The 6 cenotaphs are monuments to the dead, not tombs or sepulchres that hold their actual remains. The bodies themselves are thought to be buried in the cave beneath the building. Starting at left, top to bottom, are the cenotaphs of Leah and Jacob. In the middle are the cenotaphs of Sarah and Abraham. And in the yellow hall at right are the cenotaphs of Rebekah and Isaac. Who is missing here? Rachel, the second wife of Jacob, who died on the way to Jerusalem after giving birth to Benjamin. We will visit the tomb of Rachel in a subsequent video. This photo was taken in 2008. Relatively little has changed in the exterior of the building in the 30 years from 1977 to 2008. However, the interior of the building has been significantly revamped. In February 1994, a disturbed Israeli-American settler targeted a crowd of Muslims worshiping within the monument, leaving 29 Palestinian Muslims dead and scores injured. The resulting riots resulted in a further 35 deaths. As a result, 2 exterior entrances, one for Jews, one for Muslims, were created, and the interior was partitioned into 2 separate parts. Tourists can enter both sides, but Jews and Muslims are restricted to enter and visit their respective sides only. Jews are allowed to use portions of the building shown here in blue, amounting to about 20% of the building. Muslims have free access to the rest of the building, shown in green. Jews view the cenotaphs of Abraham, Sarah, Jacob, and Leah from one side, while Muslims view them from the other side. Muslims retain exclusive possession of the hall of Rebekah and Isaac, while Jews retain possession of a monument to Joseph. It is a circuitous drive from the Muslim to the Jewish side of the monument. A more enjoyable alternative is to take the direct path that leads through the market. The smell and color of vegetables and spices provides a welcome break. Kathleen is covered with a hooded robe that was issued as we entered the Muslim side. On the Jewish side, the women do not need to cover up, but men need to wear a skull cap or kippah. Some Jewish traditions tell of how Abraham was led to the cave of Machpelah by a supernatural light and the smell of paradise due to the presence of the bodies of Adam and Eve. This is said to have explained his eagerness to buy the cave and to pay such a high price for it. This photo shows a memorial to the grave of Adam. The symbolism of a tree growing out of a square enclosure is seen elsewhere at various burial monuments. In a niche in the area where Jacob's tomb is viewed sits this unmarked relic of Adam's footprint. Others have told me that it is Muhammad's footprint. According to the Zohar, the main work of Jewish mysticism, the cave of Machpelah is the gateway to Eden. Souls pass through it in order to ascend to and connect with the uppermost realm. Hence the mystical meaning of the word Machpelah. The doubling denotes a connection between 2 worlds. Here is a close-up of the footprint. This is the view of Abraham's cenotaph from the Jewish side. The Arabic inscription on the side of the cenotaph that is not visible from here reads, "Here is the tomb of the prophet Khalil, the friend of God." The Hebrew caption speaks of Avraham Avinu, Abraham, our father. The beautiful fabric and Arabic inscription on Sarah's cenotaph is shown here. In contrast with the drab exterior of the building, The inside is a hodgepodge of colors and elaborate decor imposed by its varied groups of tenants over many centuries. The cenotaphs within the hall of Rebekah and Isaac, shown here, have a distinctive red and white horizontal stripe pattern to their stonework. Architectural features from the former Crusaders' church are easily noted. The cenotaph of Rebekah always attracts groups of Muslim women. Some peer in through grated windows, while others sit outside and chat reverently. The clock in the mosque displays the current time and date. More importantly, it gives the exact time at which the 5 daily prayers should be offered on that particular date. Within the hall, one of 2 known entrances to the caves below is signaled by the enclosure you see on the right. This entrance is a narrow shaft covered by a decorative grate, which itself is covered by the elaborate domes shown here. When the tomb of the Patriarchs was controlled by Crusaders, access to the caves was sometimes possible. The caves had been rediscovered in 1119 by a monk named Arnul. Arnul discovered bones in the first cave, and believing them to be those of the biblical patriarchs, he washed them in wine and stacked them neatly. According to an account written in 1163 by Rabbi Benjamin of Tudela, there was a sequence of 3 caves, the first 2 of which were empty. In the 3rd cave were 6 tombs, arranged to be opposite one another. This aperture leads down to the underground area. At the bottom you can see the candles that are lowered into the cavity through a 28-centimeter round opening, which is usually covered by a brass plate with holes in it, so visitors can get a glimpse of what lies below. A second entrance, through the lamp aperture, is traditionally considered to be the threshold to the Garden of Eden. It is located to the southeast near the mihrab of the mosque. It is sealed by a large stone and usually covered by prayer mats. This second cave entrance is very close to the location of the 7th step on the outside of the building. For centuries, the Mamelukes forbade Jews from approaching the sacred enclosure any closer than this 7th step. In 1967, after Israel gained possession of the area during the 6-Day War, Moshe Dayan wanted to explore the caves below the monument. Not knowing anything about the second, larger entrance, he directed the lowering of a brave and slim 12-year-old girl named Michael into the tiny aperture. In the dark, she explored what she could of the lower level, which, it seemed, no one else had seen for centuries. As we sat down to rest, Dr. Meshe Mashiach told us the story of early explorers beneath the monument and of his own descent into the caves in 1981. He said that there were 2 caves, an upper and a lower. On top of the upper cave were bones that have since been dated to the time of ancient Israel in the Iron Age. Because the caves have been filled in with dirt, we only have the description of an ancient explorer to tell us about the second cave. No further exploration has been permitted since that time. This map shows horizontal and vertical views of the underground area as it can be reached by the 2 entrances in the Hall of Isaac and Rebekah. Some of these photos document the finds of the 1981 explorers of the caves, including the stairway and the narrow corridor. Among the artifacts discovered were pieces of a lamp and an intact wine jug. Some wonder whether this jug could have been used by the monk Arnul when he said that he washed and stacked the bones he found there in 1119. In 2014, my son Robert and I closed our visit to the Tomb of the Patriarchs with a photo in front of Joseph's cenotaph. Joseph is not thought to be buried here. His burial site is believed to be further north. Among other stops, we will visit the site of the traditional tomb of Joseph in the next video in this series.